Page. If you aren't getting regular emails from us, please get a hold of Jeremy in the back. He'll make sure he gets your business card and get you on our newsletter. So many of you guys have known we've been doing some bonus social activities. Our next one is coming up. It's next week, Wednesday, October 26th. We're going to meet at 6 and 40 Brewing in Lakewood from 4:30 to 6:30. These have been really fun events. It's a great way to kind of connect in a casual setting outside of our general meetings. We've been picking you guys down to different breweries all over Lakewood and Golden.
But I can hear you talking.
Really fun.
Can I hear you talking?
We have a whole lineup for the rest of the year for our speakers. Our next one is November 3rd, Ignite Your Insight. I did post this on the Facebook page just to save the date. I know it's crazy to think the holidays are coming, but we already have our holiday party planned. It's at Vice Kitchen again, if you went there last year. Same place, December 14th from 5 to 7. And again, I know Dee mentioned we are looking for members to join the board and help us kind of plan and host these events. That's all I got.
Great, thanks very much, Allison. My name is Anthony Pritchard, and I am your speaker director. I get the distinguished responsibility of searching out the best speakers in Denver to come and talk to you about personal and professional development. And I really love my job a lot, but I'll be soon passing this on to Melissa Berg, who is broadcasting from the back. So if you like anything that you hear today and you know anybody in your life who might also benefit from this presentation, feel free to navigate over to our BHS Facebook page and send them the link. BHS is a great networking group for individual business owners who are out there on their own, who may just be starting out or who are also just having lots of experience, but knowing that the reason that they're in their business is because of a deeper calling, that soft, silent voice that speaks to them that says, you're here to do more in the world than work for somebody else. And we've been doing this for a really long time, and I'm glad to see that it continues to grow and thrive. And today, you meet these speakers in the most unusual of places. I was at a mixed martial arts fight at Denver University when I ran into your speaker's husband, Joe. And Joe and I were sitting next to each other, and we happened to be there for the same reason, watching for the same fighter. And he won that night, but we got to talking, and he said, oh yeah, you should meet my wife. She has a talk. And I said, oh, tell me more. And he said, well, Kari Knutson is a professional speaker, therapist, and storyteller who focuses on helping people develop their interpersonal skills. And I said, really? I need to know more about her. And he said, yeah, well, she lives in Denver with me and 2 children, 2 cats, and 5 very emotionally intelligent guinea pigs. And I said, I need to have her come to speak to BHS. Please help me welcome your speaker today, Kari Knutson, Thriving Through Change.
Hi. Let's see if this is on. I don't think it is. This mic?
It's not.
Hold on. I turned it on in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Check, check. Let me try. Check, check.
Oh, she's got to turn it on and back, too.
Hold on. You got to make sure the tech works. So eat your cinnamon buns real quick and focus on that.
Did you notice that? Purple. Working!
Check, check, check. Check, check. I'm trying. Check, check. Oh, that's for real now. All right. That's better. Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Too loud? Not loud enough? Perfect? Okay, great. So welcome to this morning. I'm so happy to be your speaker, especially on the topic of thriving through change because of the fall. I love that we all kind of are feeling it. My name is Kari Knutson. My background is I'm a professional therapist. And a few years ago, I thought, why don't I take psychology off the couch and come bring it to the people? Because a lot of times when you think about a therapist, you think you got to go sit on the couch, lay back and talk about your mother, which is not what we do. So I thought, I have a lot of great information from psychology that we can apply to people's lives without having them come to me. So that's how I started my business. I've been doing it 8 years now. And I really enjoy different topics in applied psychology. So today the topic is thriving through change. And what I think is so important about this idea of, a lot of us think about change as like surviving change. And it's very hard to think about thriving through change sometimes because it's difficult. So today we're going to talk about why it's difficult and some ideas for how to make it better. Does that sound all right? Also, before we start, if you need that cinnamon bun or you need some more coffee, please don't feel trapped. Because as a speaker, I hate it when people like have that face and then they kind of casually try to try to do that. I'm not offended anyway. Please feel free to move about the cabin as needed, okay? Take care of any of your needs. If you need to leave for any reason, that's fine. We'll clap when you come back, okay? Sound good. Okay, let's do that. All right, so thriving through change. Even when we see the word change, sometimes they're like, what's my response when I just think about if someone says change? A lot of times we just have a very visceral response. Like change, no, change maybe, change I don't want to, change I need to. And here's what studies show that I think is really interesting. Whether you are the target of the change and someone is saying, change is happening to you, you have no choice, this is what's going to happen. Or you're the architect, meaning you're planning the change. Or you're just a willing participant, like a collaborative participant. I'll go along with it. It wasn't my idea, but I'll go along with it. What we know is this, you are human. So what that means is your response is going to be driven by your humanness, not your title, your position, how many times you've gone through change, who you think you are in the world. So some changes are much easier and some changes are harder, but you cannot avoid the feelings that go along with change because you're human. And the human part to me means this. A lot of times we think, you know what, I'm so special. I'm incredibly unique. Nobody has gone through what I've gone through. Nobody. I have all these special feelings. I have all these special ways of showing up in the world. And then have you ever shared something with another person that you think is very like, I'm the only one that's experienced it? And they're like, oh yeah, I felt that way too. Or I've done it. And you're like, no, I'm very special. Like this is my thing, right? And sometimes when we go around thinking, well, I'm unique to this situation. I like this quote so much, all right? You are very unique. There's only one you in this whole world. How you show up, how you interact, how you engage, how you feel, you are very unique. But you're not that special, okay? You are not that special. You are a human being who's going to go through lots of human emotions. You can't protect yourself by your degrees or your experience. And sometimes I share that I cry or something or I get angry about things. And a lot of times people will say, but you're a therapist. Haven't you got that on lockdown? And I'm like, but I'm human. So sometimes I cry. Sometimes I get angry. I'm not always fully expressed. And I'm not a therapist. I'm a human who does a job as a therapist. And just because I'm good at my job doesn't mean I'm not human. And a lot of times we forget that and we have these facades that we want to put up instead of saying, I'm having very human response to this situation. And because I love this quote so much, I made you all stickers. So on my table, there's a little sticker that says you're very unique, but you're not that special, in case you need a reminder, okay? So I want to talk about too, how things have changed a bit since before March 2020. Most people already felt like they were pushing a rock uphill. Most people already felt the pressures of the world and how we lived our lives. And anyone feel like this? How about after March 22? Did any of you start again but with stairs? Yeah, I did. I certainly did. I never knew how to do any, I didn't know what Zoom was. I certainly never did a remote therapy session. I didn't know how to get all my kids and my husband and me online at the same time with one computer in the house. There was a major technology purchase that had to happen for 4 people to be at home, right? Also, sometimes your experience, like my 21 years as a therapist was no match for the moment of go online tomorrow. And I mean, I don't know about you, but this was my first pandemic. So I had no prior knowledge. I couldn't draw on any of my resources. And then I was expected to be there for other people in my role who really needed me and deal with my own needs and a new technology situation that I didn't even know what a USB port really was. Okay, so let's just be honest. Some of us, I feel like I've been pushed 10 years into the future with my tech skills, right? But a lot of us have to acknowledge we were forced to change in a day. Essentially, here's your regular life, here's something totally different that we've never experienced before. Do your job and start it again with stairs. Can you relate to that? Yeah, and that's the human side of it. And some of us felt really oh my gosh, can I even do my job now? I know, I thought, am I even good anymore? And I've been doing presentations, speaking all over the country, flying places, speaking to small groups, big groups, and now that's canceled. That's canceled now, and I've just spent all my time building my business in this way, and now I can't do that. So that goes a lot with the emotions of being human. how we manage those emotions, no matter how, I don't know, progressive we feel we are, how centered we are. There's a lot of emotions that come with change. And that's important to recognize. So when you think about what we're doing now, a lot of people are calling this time we're stepping into the new normal. And it's still a lot of change because there are some ways, I don't know if you thought this, but in January, I thought of January last year, I'm like, you know what? New Year's going to come. I'm going to wake up and it's all going to go back to normal. I just didn't even have that magic feeling like somehow the date will change and I'll wake up and I'll be back to normal. And then it wasn't, right? And now we're moving towards a new time where things are, what is normal? Are we going to go back to some of the old ways? Probably not. So we're asked to change again, which is this is another time of change into the new normal. And so when, again, thinking about the word change and changes that are happening to us, changes that we go along with, and changes that we want to make, think about how hard it is to make a change, even if you want it. Like, you know how many of us on Sunday night are like, you know what? When Monday comes, I'm going to eat breakfast completely, pack my lunch and eat it, take my breaks at work, get a 0 email inbox situation. I'm going to delete all that. I'm going to take the clothes out of the dryer and fold them after they're done and call my mother. Look at me change, right? And then by the time Monday, I don't know, at 10 gets there, you're like, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed, I'll start next week. Right? Because you've checked too many things and they're unattainable, then we just quit everything. So even when it's a self-directed change, it is very hard to step into that change. So humans, that's a human condition. Again, you're very unique, you're not that special. You're human doing a job. You are not your job. You're human first. So one thing we know for sure about humans, they do not like 3 things. Okay? They do not like uncertainty. We want to know what's going to happen. We try to control chaos. And we actually usually at some point resist change. Like even if we want it, there's a resistance to doing it. So again, this is the human condition. And so when you think about what you're up against, that's a lot. And also people really get comfortable. We like our patterns. We like to know what to expect. Sometimes even in our discomfort, we're comfortable because we know what to expect. And that's why we stay there, because we're like, at least this is not as great as I wanted, but at least I know what to expect, right? Also, we like security. We like to feel like this is how my day's going to go. This is what I do. This is how much money I make. This is where I live. Like you have your whole story about that. And then also, we don't usually choose change. It's not usually the first thing. It's hard to step into that. And so because of this, what I call, a lot of us stay on autopilot. An autopilot looks like this. Think about how you get up every morning. You probably get up around the same time every day. And then you probably do the same things in the same order that you don't think about. So if you get up in the morning and you're like, okay, make the coffee, feed the cats, take a shower. If I said tomorrow, I'd like you to take a shower, make the coffee, feed the cats. And most of you be like, no, that's not, I do it this way. This is the way. But yet, did anyone teach you that? No, you just made up a schedule, right? And that's hard because when you think about, we're so regulated. Our brains love to be on autopilot because they just love that feeling of like, oh, I know what to expect. Like, have you ever driven to work and wondered, you don't know how you got there? You just magically arrived. And like, how did I get here? You don't pay attention to the roads you're on because you drive them every day. You park in the same spot. You say hi to the same people. Sometimes you're like, what am I wearing? How did I get here? Right? Or even think about when you drive someplace, a place that you know. Think about your own attitude and how you feel. You might be listening to your tunes. You got your coffee. Maybe you're talking to someone. And you're fine. Versus when you don't know where you are and you're driving to a new place and you're like, everybody be quiet, turn off the radio. Did I miss Smith Street? Is this where we turn? Did I take a left? Did I miss it? Our brain is like new information, so it's fully focused. Our brains just automatically do that. And autopilot isn't totally bad, except for when you're wanting to make a change, right? When you're trying to think about changing, being on autopilot's difficult because you have to engage your conscious mind. And so when I think about this for myself, we can even see that some things have changed in our lives, but we take a long time to adapt. So I live in a house from 1929. In the downstairs basement, we've had pull lights forever. Recently, I said, let's upgrade this house. Let's put in switches like the rest of the world, right? But every day for the past 12 years, I've gone down my steps, and when my foot hits the last step, my arm goes up, okay? I paid for the electrician to come. I physically can see there's no pull light there. I can see the switch that I paid for, right? How many times when I'm walking in the morning, my foot hits that last step and my arm, and I'm almost like, no, come back down, right? I'll be like, you did it again. So sometimes I'm like, my arm's not going up today. I'm hitting that last step. I'm retraining my brain. Here I go, right? Because sometimes you have to do that to be effective. I have to be really conscious because that's my habit. This is the habit that I do. Every time I hit that step, my arm goes up. And it's been 12 years of that. And so it's hard to change it. And it's a silly example, but it's true. Our brains are hardwired to be unconscious. We kind of I know what to expect. I know what to do. I know my routine. This is my habit. And so to break that, it really takes what I call consciousness. And we do this autopilot thing. Think about the ways we might do this. The routines that we have, how we wake up, our daily lives, like how we tend to live, what we tend to do, the people we interact with, the food we eat, the activities we tend to do, and the routes we take. Have you ever felt that feeling when you're like, I could go another way, but this is the way I go? Or like if you get diverted, if you're on maps and it's like, go this way, I'm always like, why? What's the benefit of that? Like, is it a 2-minute thing or a 20-minute thing? And then I'm always like, oh, I've never been in this part of town. But I even resist when MapQuest tells me go another way, or Google Maps, right? Like, so think about that. We tend to do this, and that's not always bad. What gets us in trouble is when we get on autopilots are about our beliefs, our behaviors, and the actions we take. Sometimes we believe things about ourselves that aren't true. Or things that no longer serve us. So if someone said, oh, you're this kind of person, or you're like, oh, you're such an introvert, and then you take that in, and then introvert somehow means bad, instead of introverts just get their energy from being alone and need more time, versus extroverts who get their energy from being social. It doesn't mean you're less smart, you don't have something to give, but you might get, I'm an introvert, so I can't, blah, blah, blah. And then you just believe that. Or some of us grew up in families where like, you know what? Your emotions don't count. You're fine. You're good. Everything's good. You better just be good. And you weren't allowed to express yourself. And so sometimes as an adult, you drag that into adulthood and you never ask yourself, where did I get that belief system? Could I change? Is there an opportunity for me? Why do I believe what I believe? Right? And so sometimes you have to think about that. One time I did a talk and this man said, I just thought, I don't know if I like sports or not. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, I played sports. I have 3 brothers. We always did sports. We watched sports on Sundays. We did football. And he goes, I don't even know if I like it or if I just did it. And I said, well, that's a great starting point, isn't it? But I thought that was a funny revelation. That seems like a small thing, but for him to be like, I don't even know if I enjoy it. I just was told to do it. I'm an adult now. Do I have other choices? Right? And when you think about when you get an autopilot, we have a lot of visceral responses to things. We just respond without really thinking, could I change my response? So I'm going to give you a few examples. Like when I see dirty dishes in my sink, I'm not like, oh, I can just regulate my nervous system. It's probably something that happened. It's not my responsibility. No, I'm angry. I see the dishes. I'm just mad. There's no thought process. And one time I even told my husband, I was like, I don't think you love me anymore. I just can't. And he's like, what? I'm like, the dishes are in the sink telling me Joe doesn't love me. And he's like, I think the dishes are saying, I've been home with the kids all day while you've been speaking, and this wasn't my priority. And it's not your business to do them anyway. I'm like, no, that's not what the dishes are saying. The dishes, I know what they're saying. So have you ever had a ridiculous conversation? But I was so mad. I just saw the dishes and I got mad. I didn't think about any other story other than you're disrespecting me right now by leaving these. And they're not mine to do. And he has a different schedule and he'll do them, right? But no, I just went right to anger. Or how about this? Have you ever been given feedback? Even if it's constructive, do you kind of feel yourself like getting defensive? Like, I better be ready for this. You're going to tell me something. And without being like, who's telling me this? Could it help me be better? Is this a possible area for me to grow? Most of us just go right to like defensive. And that's, again, your brain is just like, it's protecting itself. Also, have you ever tried something new or something out of your comfort zone? Instead of being like, this is probably going to be okay, I can figure this out. Or look at me having a new experience. A lot of times we go right to anxiety. Will I be good enough? Will people judge me? What if I'm a beginner at something and I'm not good? Am I too old? Am I too young? Am I too fat? Am I too thin? Am I whatever is the other thing that I'm supposed to be? So a lot of times we go right to anxiety, especially around new things, right? Even probably showing up here today for some of you, when you look around the room, is it like, am I good? Are we okay? Am I supposed to be here? Am I spiritual enough? Am I not enough? Is my business cool? Like some of us have those things running in our head, and then we show up not as our best selves, but as our anxious selves. So some of these are just ideas to get you thinking about your human condition and how sometimes we show up as humans, because what we can do is if we can think about unconscious as simply autopilot is our unconscious, we have a chance to be like, how do I want to switch to being conscious? How do I want to actively engage? So I'm thinking about what I'm saying to myself, how I'm showing up, how I might switch some of those visceral responses and just take a step back and see what is happening here and now, not what just my normal response would be. So I love this quote so much. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life and you will call it fate. And this is such a great quote. Carl Jung is one of my favorite psychologists, and he's a psychiatrist actually too, and he's does such amazing work around human condition. And I call him like the father, the loving father, who's like, it's okay, it's all gonna work out. Let's figure it out. You're good. You're supposed to be here. So I love his work. And I feel like this is so great because sometimes people kind of go through life and then you wake up, and we tend to call this our midlife crisis, when you're like, how did I get here? Do I even like what I'm doing? What's happening? You know, like sometimes we have those moments of like, and that's why a lot of people have to have their big break and like leave everything. And I always think, what if you created a life you didn't have to escape from? What if you figured out a way to engage with your job and your career in ways that were fulfilling, not like, I need to escape from this or I'm creating more stress? What if you could show up with consciousness about who you are and what you say to yourself even? When you think about most of us, before we get out of bed in the morning, when that alarm goes off, we're like, what do I have to do today? Who do I have to meet? Who's going to make dinner? How am I feeling about life? How soon can I get back to bed? Like there's a lot of stress sometimes around that. And it doesn't get any better when you go to the mirror and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't lose 20 pounds since last night and I'm still going gray. Like and your brain is like, is talking all the time. And sometimes you just think that's a normal thing and you don't say, is this serving me? Is this helpful? Is this useful? But your conscious brain has to come in. Your conscious mind has to take over and be like, hey, I'm not going to talk that way to myself. And I always say, if you have nothing nice to say to yourself, don't say anything at all. Just don't say, when the alarm goes off, oh, it must be 6. When you see yourself in the mirror, oh, that's me. And for some of you, it'd be terrifying to do that. You go in the mirror and you're like, I've just been on autopilot my whole life. Criticizing is what I do. Think about this. Anyone, if this is a mirror, anyone do this? Yes. You do? Yes. Good. But that's what we should, that idea, like, I'm okay. A lot of people spend time what's wrong instead of what's right, but that's our unconscious patterns. So this is why it's so important to think about. Now I'm going to apply this to change. And I want to talk a little bit about the change curve because it takes some consciousness to think about how humans change. So there are a million, billion, trillion probably different ideas around change. There's different methodologies. There's different visuals. I chose from one main one from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and then summarized it even more. So you're welcome in advance for not going over every theory of change and every system of change. It's just too much. And I don't think any one of them is right or wrong, but I like is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model, but I just simplified it a bit, right? So the change curve looks like this. Emotions on one axis, time on another. And what humans tend to do, this is what researchers study, is we go through kind of a phase, we go through a cycle. It can be called different things. But emotions on one hand tend to be heightened at the beginning, and then with time, they tend to shift. And what most people tend to do is when they're faced with a change, they start off with shock, and then there's feelings that go along with that. So if you're in a stage of shock, there's usually a period of denial. I can't believe this is happening. It's not happening. How could this happen? No, it's not right. So that kind of shock and denial. Then you go into an uncertainty phase, which is usually marked by anger. And some of us don't like to feel like we have a right to be angry. You shouldn't be angry. Don't worry, be happy. It's all okay. And that's what I call toxic positivity. Anger is a very valid emotion. And have you ever thought about anger? Instead of being like, anger bad, would you be like, hey, anger, I see you here. You've come up for me. Has anger ever helped you set a boundary? Get you out of a situation? Let you know something wasn't right? Probably. How about thank you, anger? Thank you for coming. My emotional regulatory system is working. Thank you. Instead of don't be mad. Oh, I'm mad. Anger can also be a cover emotion for a lot of other things, like feeling uncertain, feeling guilty, feeling judged. All those things, sometimes anger comes up as the cover emotion, and behind it are a lot of other emotions, especially if you feel embarrassed overwhelmed. Sometimes we don't use deeper words to describe ourselves. We just say we're angry. And sometimes it's helpful, especially if you're working with clients, try to go deeper into what they're actually feeling. That helps to kind of move through things. We can say, this is actually how I feel. Or has anyone said, you shouldn't feel that way? Oh, just calm down. You're overreacting. If I said that to you, hey, you're overreacting, calm down. Would we be friends? Right, I love your honesty, right? Because we're like, you don't tell me to calm down. I know how I feel. But yeah, we do that all the time. Don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. And so I know how I feel. Don't tell me to calm down. I know how I feel. Don't tell me I don't feel what I feel. Most of us feel very strongly when people try to change our feelings. So this idea of uncertainty and anger happen. And then there's usually a turning point where you start to explore options, where you start to feel differently, and then some kind of acceptance and moving forward. In some way, I'm stepping into what's new for me. And when you think about the change curve, a lot of people try to put their whole life up on the change curve. Instead of saying, well, in this part of my life, I'm here. In this part of my life, I'm here. Oh, in this part of my life, I'm here. But this issue, I'm here. And the change curve for some of us, some issues, I go really fast through the change curve. I'm like, oh, look I did it pretty quick. Others take days, weeks, years of your life, right? Some issues, you're just like, oh, I'm still here. But don't categorically put your whole life up here. Put the issue, put the situation, put whatever you're struggling with up there, because then it's easier to see. Also, when you acknowledge the change curve, what I think is interesting is I can see through my life in different experiences that I've actually handled change better than I thought. I've actually made it to this curve a lot, but sometimes when we're in the middle of a change, we forget I can do change, right? I just want to tell you a brief story, give you an example of this. When before COVID, I was traveling all over the place, speaking to big groups, because my content isn't industry specific, it's human specific. So one day I'd be speaking to engineers, the next early childhood educators, then nurses, then real estate agents, then home builders about human psychology. And my topic, my basis is emotional intelligence. So all my topics come from that. So when the pandemic shut everything down, I'm like, well, I just quit then. I guess what is my job now? All I know is traveling around speaking to people. Large groups, small, like I travel and speak. You cannot travel and you cannot speak to large groups of people. Fine, I'll quit, I guess. And then I was like feeling angry about it. But I'm like, that's it. That's the only option. It's just quitting. There's no other choices, like being in denial that anything else could be possible for me. That's it. My business of 8 years over, right? And also being a therapist online, stupid. I hate it. Like, so all my emotions come in. Then as the months, March, April, May. In May, I got a call from someone and said, could you do a virtual presentation? And I wanted to speak so badly. I said yes. But when I hung up, I'm like, what's that going to look like? Here's my phone. Hey, everyone, it's Kari from Knutson Speaks. I don't know how to operate my video on my computer. I don't know what to do with this. Is that how I'm going to do my speaking? So I have something called walking mad, that when I get mad, I like to walk around my neighborhood, and not like like I'm just taking a walk by, like mad. Like I just like to be mad about it. It just helps me like just walk mad. So I was walking around my neighborhood, and my neighbor Tyson was outside, and he said, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not. Like I'm supposed to like be somebody I'm not. I don't even know how to. So do you want me to speak to you? Hey, here's my phone." I was just going off, right? And he's like, "Kari, do you know what I do for a living?" And I said, "I have no idea, Tyson." I said, "But I've always appreciated your yard. It's very lovely, right?" And he says to me, "I'm a video producer. Do you want some help with your video?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. Can you show me all the ways of videos so I don't have to record this on my phone and look stupid?" Because I take pride in being a good speaker. And in this environment, how do you be a good speaker? I don't know. Right? And now you want the rest of the story to look like this. You want to be like, so Tyson helped me, and then I was a world famous virtual sensation. Right? That's how we want to like, that was a good story. Okay. But no. So we go to the turning point, which is usually very messy. But there's some level of acceptance in trying, but you have to be a beginner again because you're stepping into new beginnings, right? So this is my very first video with Tyson. The camera's here. My computer's here with my notes on it and as my teleprompter, and I'm standing in front of a video camera for the first time. And I coach people in public speaking because I speak so much, and I always tell people, you know your name, you know your topic. You don't need to be like, "Hi, I'm Kari Knutson from Knutson Speaks. The topic is thriving through change," which you see some people do. You can engage with your audience right away. You know your name, you know your topic. Okay, this is literally what I did. The camera's here, my teleprompter's here. And somehow I'm doing this. I don't know why, but I'm like, hello. And I'm talking in the weirdest voice ever. Hello, my name is Kari Knutson. I am talking on transcending the unknown. And I had a weird face. I was leaning forward. I read my name and the title. And then I looked back. It's funny what you revert to when you're totally new at something. And then I was like, this is a great talk, which you will learn about the unknown or something. Just so I didn't have my words. I wasn't nice. He's like, let's try again with like more normal you, less speaker thing you, whatever is going on right now. So we kept filming, and eventually he sent me the tape. It was the worst video I've ever seen. I cried when I watched it, and I called him and said, we cannot send this to anyone ever, right? So I had to do it again, and then again, right? And then I still want to apologize to that first group for saying that, right? But the crazy thing is, as I started to do it more, and then Tyson showed me how to use my own computer, and I got a Zoom account, and I did all those things, it started to get better. And when people called me, I was able to say, yeah, I can do virtual, I can do pre-record with some confidence. And now on this side, as I've moved forward and stepped into the acceptance and what I'm doing now when people call me, I'm like, yeah, what do you need? In person, virtual, pre-record? And I say it with total confidence. I also have done 175 virtual events. When I counted them up from the pandemic to now, that's a lot. And I've learned, so I'm through the curve. And I see the benefit, but not over here. Not over here when I'm like, this is stupid, I hate everything. Right? So we have to see ourselves in that way. Like, where am I in the curve? How is that working for me? Right? That's a really important thing to think about. Right? The change curve for you. And then what I want to talk about too is a lot of times we have feelings that go along with change that we're not willing to talk about because we're supposed to be like, okay. And a lot of times we have these feelings kind of around change that just automatically come up for us. And what we forget is there are also these feelings that come up around change. You can have hope at the same time you feel uncertain. Two things can be true at once, but sometimes we like, no, this is the only way. So you can have hope. You can have some curiosity. What might this be like for me? How might this work? You can have some curiosity. You can even have some excitement while you're feeling resistance. You can have two things. Also, you can maybe surrender, like this is happening, so how can I stop resisting? Maybe you just want some optimism, like I could make this happen. And then finally, what about just some trust? Trust in yourself, trust in the universe, trust in the process, trust that you're gonna make it, whatever that is. But sometimes you can have competing feelings and hold them both. We can't get into dualistic thinking, right, wrong, yes, no, good, bad, happy, sad. We're very complex, incredibly complex as human beings. You can hold two things at the same time. You don't have to deny one thing to have the other. Does that make sense? I think it's a really powerful concept. Also, we have to acknowledge that change involves loss. Sometimes we skip this part. Even good change involves loss. Even positive change that we want involves some kind of loss. Who you were, how you felt about it, what the situation was like, that's not going to be that way anymore, whatever it was, it's a loss. And there is no growth without change, and there is no change without loss. So when you're working with people or you're thinking about your own change, that's so important. What's the loss here? Because sometimes if you can say, like for my speaking career, it's a loss of who I thought I was going to be as a speaker. At that moment, before I was over here, that moment of the shock of the pandemic, everything's canceled. All my gigs, can you imagine 25 gigs canceled in one day? And just feeling like I can't even think about hope or possibility because I'm in sadness and despair, right? But when I think about the loss of who I was and how I trained and what I knew, I had to say, this is a big loss for me because now I have to reinvent myself in this new way and I don't know how, and I'm going to be a beginner and it's not going to be pretty. And I'm used to feeling competent, confident, and I know what to do when I'm in front of a live group. And even one time on a gig, there were like 200 people, so no one had their screens on. And I was telling some story that I thought was that normally people laugh at. And no, of course, no response, right? Because no one's on their mics. And then I clicked my button to get off my gig and I told my husband, like, I don't think I'm funny anymore. I don't think I'm funny. I don't even know if I'm good. Am I good? Am I bad? I don't know, because no one's responding. I'm talking to a screen. And he's like, if a tree falls in the woods, is it heard? I'm like, don't go that way. He's like, okay, how about this? Were you funny before? Was that story funny? Do you think it's probably still funny? He's like, let's step into that space. But you have no feedback, so that would make me angry because I need feedback. But then I stopped comparing apples to oranges one day and said, stop expecting what cannot happen. Step into this space and still show up with your energy and your confidence in who you are and how you speak. You're not in this space anymore, but my mind hadn't quite gotten there yet. And so you have to be gentle with yourself instead of judgy with yourself, because we do that. Especially as adults, shouldn't we know it all and have it all together? And I've done this 26 years. But when I'm not in this space, I've done it for half the day and I'm overwhelmed. Right? So when you can acknowledge that, very unique, not that special, not my job, human being, then we can have some fun with it and we can eventually do the curve. The other thing with this is there are a lot of responses to change and people tend to want to be kind of judgy about that, right? But I don't say good responses or bad responses. I just say less awesome or awesome, right? And so when you think about this, denial, and I've been in all of these, but different kinds of changes. Denial means I'm not accepting it. Non-active is I see the change, I'm not a part of this. It can just happen and do its thing. Resistance, change, we'll just see about that. And then reactive is change over my dead body. No, right? Do you see those are like a little cycle? Then when you move to this side, more awesome looks like this. What if we could be realistic? The change is happening because of this and be more realistic and tell ourselves a different story. Proactive, I'm going to try to do what I can to make the change more positive for me. Maybe some level of, I've got to figure out a way to accept this change because that's where I'm at. So how can I work on acceptance? Also, maybe I can find a way to be positive about the change. Maybe I can't, but can I work towards that idea? And then finally, could I see change as even necessary? Things have to change. And it's necessary for me to go with it. So see how your mind could go between all of these? So this, on this side, I think is surviving change. And on this side, I think is thriving through change. And that's all it is. You can have both though. So don't be like, I want to be on that side. And tonight, maybe I'm on this side sometimes because I'm human and I need to go through the change curve sometimes to get to this side. You can't bypass the process, right? You cannot be like, I'll just get over there tomorrow. Sometimes we have to ride the wave of the change curve, right? Also, when you think about the realities of change, we know two things for sure. Change will happen. It's going to happen. And you can look in your own life. Have you had change? Probably. I mean, look at the seasons. You see it every year, right? And then also look at kids growing up. Have you ever thought, like, how are you growing up? And I've stayed the same. When I work as a therapist in a school, and it's K-8, and sometimes I've been with the kids for so long, they'll graduate, go to high school, come back, and they're driving, like to pick up their sibling or something. I'm like, you can't drive. And they're like, Miss K, I'm like 20 now. Like, but I'm like, how have I not aged a day in the last 10 years, right? But we get in denial, but yet we see it, right? We see it all the time. So we know things will change. And the second thing that we forget though, change will happen is easy. We forget this. We're actually designed to handle change. Because sometimes people say, I'm bad at change. I don't do change. Well, no, you're actually designed. And what I mean by this is this idea of we are problem-solving machines. We are looking to solve problems all the time. How can I do it better? How can this happen? How can we make this more efficient? I feel like change is part of how we solve problems, and human beings love to solve problems. We actually do. The reason we don't still use candles is because someone said, I have an idea, let's make a change. And the reason any of us know what LED is because someone said, I think we could do it better, right? So and even think about technology, all about change. My kids, there was a rotary phone at the Children's Museum, and they're like, what's this? I'm like, in the olden days, you used to pick up the phone and dial each number. Remember those phones? And they're like, what is this? Then they saw a picture of the Statue of Liberty in a book, and I said, why does she have an iPad? And I was like, she's not holding an iPad. Oh my God. But that was, how she has the tablet? She's like, how they relate. I'm like, what? And then I got all upset. I'm like, but yeah, that's their life now, right? She's holding an iPad. Did they have iPads when they made the statue? Like, oh my God, right? But like, that's how we move through things. So I want to check my time real quick. Do I have 2 minutes, 3, 4, 1? And my tech people in the back, and how much time do I have? 5 minutes? Okay, let's do this. Okay.
And
Right, 10, I get 10, okay, all right. So the next part I want to move through, I just want to give you a few ideas for handling change, all right? And I call it coping with change. And I just want to give you a few quick ideas from psychology that might help you cope, right, with the inevitable changes, right? So first things, and this seems like so simple, but we have to acknowledge that the change is happening. If we're in denial, it's pretty hard. And I love this quote, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. You just can't because you're in denial. That's how it works, right? So you can't change what you don't acknowledge. And sometimes even saying, change is happening. And that's enough for today. And then I'm resisting it for a bit, but maybe I'll just say change is happening, right? And when you think about denial, it really does look like this. I don't want to see it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to process it. We're human. And that's our first response. So if you do this, don't judge yourself. Say, oh, I'm starting the cycle. I'm starting my change cycle. I'm kind of in here right now, but at least I'm on the chart, right? So then, and I love this quote, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced. It's true we can't change everything, but we cannot even attempt to change it unless we face it. And that is so important to think of. And I love James Baldwin as a writer, is prolific, deep, thoughtful. If any book by him has something to take, he is an incredible writer. If you ever want to sink your teeth into something beautiful, any of his work is good. But this is a beautiful quote that I think really touches on change in a way that helps us. Yes, we might not be able to handle it, but what if we can, and what if we at least engage with it? Because then we won't have any shot if we don't try, okay? Also, sometimes just saying to yourself, things are changing. I might even say this to myself 20 times a day just to get me in, like, things are changing, things are changing. When I had my first child, and she was 9 months and 11 days ready, the doctor's like, you have to have this baby, and you're gonna have to have a C-section because she's not coming out on her own. And I had to be like, things are changing, things are changing, things are changing. I just had to be like, the baby's coming, right? And sometimes that's all I could say, things are changing. And one day I'm not a mom, the next day I am. Things are changing, right? Also, accepting our emotions. Remember when I put up these emotions? Oh, sorry, these guys. What I think is so important to remember is that our emotions, I'm going to go back now. We live in a cycle, like a world of toxic positivity. Don't worry, be happy, look on the bright side, find the silver lining. And what that causes is a lot of people to be miserable on the inside, but have the facade of, I better be okay. And that's so dangerous when really all of our emotions are available to us. And maybe it's okay not to be okay. Maybe it's okay to be angry or frustrated. And if you could see emotions, I say like colors, you would never say blue's awesome, purple, never speak to me about purple. I resist purple. You'd be like, are you okay? Because it's like a color. It's just a color. We might have a preference for a color, but no color is bad, right? So, but we tend to be happiness, good, anger, bad, and we just close it up. And what if you could say, oh, look at my emotional regulatory system. Something sad happened. I'm sad. It's working. I did something embarrassing. I'm embarrassed. It's working, right? Then you just say. So I like to think about colors and feelings as the same. What if they just are? What if they just are there for you to pick from, not to judge? Right? So I worked with a group that said, you need a sticker that says FJA with colors behind it. And I said, I don't even know what FJA means. And they say, you say it all the time. And I said, what do I say all the time? And they're like, feelings just are. They're not good. They're not bad. They're like colors. I'm like, is that how I talk? And they're like, yes. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll make you a sticker. So on the swag table, there's a sticker that says FJA. You can thank everyone at Weld County for that, who mocked me until I made them one. Okay, but feelings just are. All right. Also, showing vulnerability is so important. Sometimes we're so afraid to be like, I need help. I don't know what I'm doing. You have to take a risk at some point to be like, I'm a beginner again. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to ask for help. I'm not sure how this goes, right? So there's always a risk that is involved with making a change. But you have to say, a lot of times when we get to risk, fear shows up for us. But you have to say, like, is the fear just an indicator that I'm doing something new? And do I know the difference between fear and danger? Probably. If danger comes up, don't do that thing. If fear comes up, see it as an opportunity. Oh, I'm doing something new. I must be moving through the cycle. Thank you, fear, for letting me know I'm about to do this. Take a risk. And there's a quote I love that says, everything you want is on the other side of fear. Everything you want is on the other side. And sometimes I'll even say that. Everything you want is on the other side of fear. Let's get there, right? You have to get out of your comfort zone, though, to do that and acknowledge that. And also get out from behind the facade of like, I should be fine all the time and my degrees and my professional experience will help me. You are a person first and a professional second. Be a person first, all right? Also be curious. What's possible for me? Be like a cat. My 2 cats, T-Rex and Molly Brown, constantly curious. What am I doing today? I always look at them like, how can you be so curious about everything all the time, right? And curiosity is just an active state of interest. Be interested in yourself and think about, I want to know more about something. Me. I want to know about why I'm reacting that way, why this is difficult. Not judgy, curious. There's a big difference between that. Also, when you think about curiosity, think of it as opportunity or possibility. What's possible for me? What's possible if I'm curious, not judgmental? Right? And I love this quote too. Have a mind opened by wonder rather than one closed by belief. What if you thought, I wonder what's possible for me? I wonder. Just have a mind open by wonder. Don't have a plan. Don't have a goal. Just have a mind open by wonder first. I wonder what would happen. I'm curious about why I responded that way. I want to look into myself to see why this was more difficult than I thought it would be. I'm curious about my emotional response. That seemed to really trigger something in me. Just be curious, not judgy, okay? And finally, for this last part, we often forget about utilizing humor in change, and we forget that things are actually sometimes can be funny or like that we can lighten ourselves up a bit because sometimes we get so restrictive. And so the idea of utilizing humor is like, can you engage and to lighten things up in some way so you don't take yourself too seriously? There's a lovely quote that says, life is a tragedy when seen in close-up, but a comedy in long shot. Have you ever had something bad happen over here that was incredibly funny over here, but it took a lot of time? Like my wedding dress not being ready on the day I got married, not funny. 3 years later, started to be funny. 5 years later, starting to get really funny. 16 years later, hilarious story. Hilarious story that we tell every anniversary and laugh so hard. But back here, and not funny. A lot of tears, right? So when you think about that for yourself, it's really, really important. How can I laugh at myself? And sometimes if I can't laugh at myself, I laugh at other people. Anyone see this? This is the Target dress challenge. Target produced dresses for people that look like they were from Little House on the Prairie. People dressed up in them and took pictures, and it was called the Target Dress Challenge. And if I was having a bad day, I would just check out Target Dress Challenge, and this would always make me laugh. So this is what the quote is. Target has decided if we're going to suffer a pandemic, we might as well look like we just lost the farm after locusts ate our crops. This is the actual rack of dresses. And then this man single-handedly got me through the pandemic. Wherever he is, I'd like to thank him. Okay, this is his shot of it, and this is him. And then this picture is my favorite. Aww. So sometimes you just have to laugh, right? And sometimes you have to, like, this picture never gets old. Never, still makes me laugh to this day, right? And whether he's in Game of Thrones, a comic movie, or Sex and the City, I don't care. I'm always laughing when I see Bernie Sanders in this. It's so funny still. And sometimes that just makes me giggle a bit. Also, sometimes you have to remember we have to laugh at ourselves because we are ridiculous. If I had a video camera on you just from this morning to now, I could find 5 things you did that were so funny, right? You forget, though, that I'm pretty funny. And we think sometimes, what if I acknowledge that I did something that's kind of funny? Will people judge me? And I find that people normally laugh with you, not at you, if you're self-deprecating. You invite humor. So for my last little minute, I just want to tell you a quick story about this. I was at an event on an extended stage speaking to 250 people, and it was about EQ, which I love, and I was wearing a cute dress, and I felt like really good about myself, and I'm speaking on the stage, and I'm walking around, and all of a sudden, I feel my tights coming down. And I'm doing this whole thing, talking, I'm like, oh my God, my tights are coming down, oh my God. Then I'm like, keep focused, talk about your thing. And then I'm like, just stop speaking. And then use your eyes to engage with 250 people. Just stop moving. And then I realized my tights were still coming down because they had a mind of their own. So I'm like, oh my God, these people are going to see my tights. 250 people are going to see my tights come on. So I said to myself, Kari, you're going to stop this right now. And what I said is, hey, everybody, there's something happening up here which you can't see, but you're going to. And so I want to just wrap this up by saying, we're going to take what's called break for tights. And that means my tights are coming down. And then everyone's like, I'm like, no, they really are. You don't want to see this. So we're going to just talk amongst yourselves or take a 5-minute break. And I'm going to take care of my tights. And then everyone's like, I'm like, no, really? They're coming down. Look away. And then I did this. I just went back over to the podium and I'm like, carry on. And then I literally took my tights down. Okay. Wrapped them up, put my shoes back on. And we're like, all right, let's get started. How was your first break for tights? Everybody love it? Love it. And then they laughed with me. Can you imagine if I kept going and the tights actually came down? Oh my God. So then one group wanted a sticker that says, you should have a sticker that says break for tights. So I do. So if you want anything from me, I do. I love stickers. I love magnets. So over there, you'll see I have left for you. You're very unique, but you're not that special. FJA, feelings just are. I've also left for you, my last thing is, I hope that you have this idea about who you can be in the world, and that's that you get big like a peacock. You know when peacocks are like this, doing their thing, they're beautiful, amazing, and cool. What if you got big like a peacock? You know when peacocks gets big, they're like, check me out. I'm taking up some space. What if you could get big, not from ego, but from service? And what if you could use all your awesomeness to show up to change? Like, I can take this. I don't have to get small in the face of change. I can get big. And that sticker is a peacock and says, get big. Not from ego, but from service. And not from scarcity, but from abundance. And from like, I can do this change curve. Watch me. Right? So this is the official end of my speech. I want to invite you to my table where you can sign up for my newsletter, which is called Insights and Inspiration, which I send out once a month. I also have a podcast called Get Big Out Loud. Get it? Get big. Talk about it. Get it? Like it? Okay, good. All right. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today, especially early in the morning, especially to be invited to such a wonderful group. I appreciate not only your interest in the topic, but I hope you take something from today and be like, this is for me. I'm taking that. That was worth my time. Take something that was valuable and go out into the world and be amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kari.
You're welcome.
That was a wonderful presentation. Everybody loved it. And if you still love VHS and you can't get enough, join us next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. for Cocktails and Connection at 640 Brewing. And our next VHS meeting right here on November 3rd for Ignite Your Insight with Elisa Malango. Oh, can you turn this on? Because Dee Dee's going to pray us out.
All right. I'll just invite you guys to stand up. Let's get big. Let's get big. I love that. Like a peacock. Everybody, here we go. Oh my gosh. I was feeling that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to take a minute and just anchor all of that down, all of that goodness down, and bring it out into the world, just knowing that we're speaking into clarity, into reality. All of these things, all of these beautiful gifts we have, that we can share them and spin them and be standing confident in them. So thank you for coming and being with us today. I release these words in